So let's continue. We will once again continue with someone from the Postgres professional side, and we'll be delving deeper. We'll be delving deeper into the database itself. We'll be talking about PostgreSQL 13, and we'll be talking about what new monitoring related features does PostgreSQL 13 provide. So let's welcome from Postgres professional, senior database developer, Anastasia Lubennikova. Welcome.
So, hello. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this virtual event. I hope everyone sees my presentation well.
Yes, we can see you just fine. Mm-hmm.
And today we discuss monitoring solutions that are built to collect certain metrics from the monitored system, Postgres in this case. And in fact, you're always limited by the information that the system lets you to collect. Of course, you can write some custom scripts, but still you can only observe it as much as the system lets you. And Postgres provides a lot of metrics that reflects its internal state. It also provides some information about running queries, about background processes, and each release adds some new monitoring-related features for the community. In her talk, Daria explained how you can add new custom metrics to your monitoring plugin. And here I'll explain what are the new things that you can gather for PostgreSQL 13. For the beginning, a few words about myself. All my career so far has been devoted to PostgreSQL project, and my primary job is core development of PostgreSQL and third-tier support with a focus on indexes, data storage, and backup solutions. And besides, I'm a devoted PostgreSQL evangelist and mentor. I'm always happy to introduce the project to new people and educate newcomers. Here's the outline of today's short talk. PostgreSQL 13 was released in late September 2 months ago, and I'm not sure if many already have it in production, if many people already tried it. So I'll show you the advantages. Maybe they will help you to decide it and to go to the new version. By now, many of you have heard about its major feature, and today we'll discuss monitoring-related features, such as query sampling, wall usage statistics, and some other options. So let's start with my personal favorite. Those of you who monitor database queries must be already familiar with these parameters. Log statement, which controls which SQL statements are logged, and log min duration statement, which enables logging of statements that run for at least the specified amount of time. These parameters are helpful in tracking down unoptimized queries in your application. However, you should always bear in mind that excessive log traffic may impact performance, especially when you analyze workloads with lots of short queries. The 13th release introduces two new parameters that allow sampling of statements to log. Log statement sample rate controls, sample rate, which means a share of queries that you want to see logged. And log min duration sample defines the minimum required duration of such statements. Only statements with duration that exceeds log min duration sample are considered for sampling, so it means that you need to set both of those parameters for sampling to work. And also an important thing to note is that alt parameter, log min duration statements, has a higher priority, which means that if you have both of them set, you should set log min duration sample lower to enable sampling. Otherwise, all queries will be logged just as if no sampling is enabled. Now I want to show you the difference that sampling usage makes. Here I run just a very simple synthetic test using pgbench, its internal utility for PostgreSQL benchmarking. And I just run 10,000 transactions with all queries logged. You can see it in the first row of a table with sampling enabled. You can see the settings on the slide. We log all queries that are longer than a second and only 10% of all other queries. And the last row shows the same workload with only long queries logged. With sampling enabled, the timing looks slightly better than without it, but to be honest, I wouldn't take this time metric seriously because it's just a test with all default settings on my laptop. You surely can get better results with the proper tuning. What is more interesting here is log size difference. You can see that sampling helps to make log file size approximately 10 times smaller. We can figure out that majority of queries in this test long less than 1 second. And we can see it in the last row. If we only log long queries, the log file remains almost empty. So the difference introduced by this feature is significant. Even if you don't care a lot about disk space consumption, it still will be useful to speed up tools that analyze PostgreSQL log. Let's continue with login. The new Postgres release introduces settings to improve control over prepared statement parameter logging. If new log parameter max length is set, all parameters, all bind parameter values will be trimmed to this many bytes. And another setting log parameter max length on error adds a context for failure of parameterized queries or prepared statements. Previously, such parameters were never logged during errors. This login, you can see example on the slide. Previously, you had no context for, you had no information about parameters of the query, and now you can see it in the log file. Those login features can also impact performance, so use them carefully. Next feature is wall usage statistics. Write-ahead log is a crucial component needed for database system durability. It is also used for physical replication, so it's important to monitor its state. Starting from version 13, one can explore wall usage per query using, for example, the explain command. In this example, you can see that the insertion of 1,000 rows into a table generates 1001 record that takes about 1 megabyte of space. AutoExplain extension also shows these statistics. You can also find wall usage statistics in AutoIQ Log Messages. Those only work when AutoIQ login is enabled with log AutoIQ mean duration parameter. So the fields are the same. It's number of records, number of full page images, and amount of space taken by those records. And there's one more place, probably the most useful for monitoring plugins and for users who access Postgres via PSQL or any other client. It is wall statistics in pgstat statements. Starting from PostgreSQL 13, it has new columns that show wall usage statistics per query. Fields are the same. One more addition to pgstat statements is a group of fields to track planning time per query. This feature is optional and it is disabled by default, as it can incur some performance decrease. To enable it, use parameter pgstat statements track planning and set it to true. When enabled, it will show total, minimal, maximal, and mean planning time for queries of the same type. Note that this feature breaks some backward compatibility for pgstat statements extension. Previously, there were time fields, and now they are renamed to executing time with new fields that have named planned time. So all monitoring tools that rely on PGStat statements, all your custom scripts, if you use some, should be adjusted accordingly. The next feature provides more information about parallel queries. Surprisingly, since parallel query was introduced in PostgreSQL 9.6, it was impossible to know which backend the parallel worker is related to. And it was quite difficult to collect information related to all parallel processes involved with the query. A simple solution to this problem is to show a parallel group leader information at the SQL level. Now it is shown as a leader PID field in PGStat activity system view. With the query presented on this slide, you can gather information about leader, process, and all members of a parallel group. So you can join these. You can join the result of this query with some other system views and collect information about all processes that are involved into one parallel query. The next group of feature is related to the new system views to be used for PostgreSQL monitoring. The first two of them improve progress reporting. PGStat progress base backup helps to estimate the progress of a base backup of a Postgres cluster. It shows the estimated size of a database to backup and the current state of a backup. The second one, PGStat Progress Analyze, shows information about backends running the analyze operation. It includes AutoIQ worker statistics as well. It can help administrator to understand how long it will take to collect the statistics for queries. Two more views that are intended to help answer the question how Postgres spends its allocated memory. PG shared memory allocations can be enabled for a deeper inspection of how shared memory is used for internal database structures. I mean such structures as a log table, process array, some data needed for background processes, interaction, and so on. And the last new view, PGStat SLRU, is related to inspection of SLRU caches. SLRU is a special buffer cache where non-user data is stored. It's similar to shared buffer cache, but it stores like some system data such as state of each transaction, information about subtransactions. Asynchronous notifications also use SLRU. Those two views will be mostly useful for DBMS developers and low-level support engineers who inspect some bottlenecks and optimize memory usage. Let's continue with low-level exploring. In PostgreSQL 13, several wait events was renamed and some new wait events were introduced. I think it's very important to tell you about this change because the very short line in release notes, which you could even have missed, actually hides a really considerable change. Wait events were added in PostgreSQL 9.6, and usually they are needed to diagnose bottlenecks that occur because of inter-process logs. And in this release, they are renamed. Why? Because previously they were named in all possible styles. Now the naming is more consistent and they're better documented, and hopefully they're more understandable to the end users, which is a good thing. The kind of bad side of this change is that you need to upgrade scripts for monitoring, if you use any, that rely on the names of wait events and they're and related to them. Also, several new wait events were introduced. You can see them on the slide. And finally, let's look at one small improvement. It is updated upper limit for the track activity query size parameter. This parameter specifies the amount of memory reserved to store the text of the comment that is currently running. The previous maximum was 100 kilobytes, which is quite large if you think about it from human-written SQL, but it could be inconvenient when monitoring when you work with applications that generate SQL queries, and they can be quite large. Now the upper limit is 1 megabyte. Please bear in mind that your database allocates this amount of memory for each session, and thus higher values of this parameter can increase memory consumption, especially if you have a lot of connections to your database. As we are going to wrap up, here is a list of all monitoring-related improvements in PostgreSQL 13. I think not all, actually. I could have omitted 1 or 2 minor features here to get a lucky number 13. So, and in conclusion, I want to share one thought. We all understand the importance of new monitoring features for people who run PostgreSQL, for developers, for database administrators who want to observe the state, to tune the system, to optimize application, to forecast system growth, to plan resources accordingly. But also, those features are extremely important for database system developers, as they help to gather more information and collect real production statistics about various parts of PostgreSQL. They are also helpful to find bottlenecks and things that can be improved. Sometimes features can't make it to PostgreSQL release simply because we cannot measure the impact that they will bring. So I think that with all these new monitoring features, with all these improvements, we can expect future releases to be even better. So thank you for attention. I know for sure that we will share this presentation on our site and maybe some sources related to the event. And maybe we'll also wrap it into the article if there's any interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. We do have a couple of questions. So let's begin with them. First question is PGSHMEM allocations different than PG buffer cache?
Yeah, it is different. This system view is, first of all, if I recall correctly, PG buffer cache is an extension, and PG shared memory allocation is system view that is inside PostgreSQL core. And I think it provides some deeper statistic, something more detailed about the parts of shared memory. Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question, maybe more of a comment that you can elaborate on. The fact that PG stat progress vacuum would never show the analyze portion if you executed vacuum analyze. But now with PG stat progress analyze, would we see the portion of the analyze in vacuum analyze view?
That's a good question. To be honest, I don't know. I think that the documentation should describe this change, if there is any. But to be honest, I think that PG-stat vacuum, PG-stat progress vacuum should have stayed as it was, and progress analyze adds some new information to it.
Thank you. And currently the last question about track activity query size. does increasing that significantly impact the memory allocation on startup?
The memory allocation will be increased exactly to the size that you set in this parameter. So if you really have a lot of sessions and a lot of connections, it can be impactful, but it looks like I forgot to attach a link. I can share maybe later in Q&A chat a link to the great article by Cybertech company, where they explain the impact of this parameter change. So maybe you don't need it enabled always. Maybe you only need it when you debug your application or when you're trying to optimize some queries, and then you will disable it.
Thank you. Another short question. Let me see if I understand the question correctly. Is max, well, actually it says it's, but correct me if I'm wrong. Is max connections not active connections? Okay, actually, let's wait for, maybe you can kind of retype the question in a bit more length, and then we can answer it at the end of the seminar, or maybe you can answer it in a written way because it's kind of hard to understand what's written there. Let me see if there's anything else for you. Will log parameter max length now show all parameter values?
I think the question is about this one. I think so. If they fit into this length, into this exact length. So if you set this parameter too small, they will be trimmed. But otherwise, I think, yeah, all parameters will be shown.
Okay, thank you. And let's see if we have anything else. Currently, there's nothing else, but let's get them going. And we'll also keep an eye out on the Q&A, and we'll answer them textually if need be. And also we'll have the Q&A session at the end of the meetup, where all of the unanswered questions, we can cover them then. Thank you for now, Anastasia. Was a real pleasure to go in depth with the latest Postgres version and how it can help us with monitoring.